What's going on, everybody? Cody Pasby back with you. It's another edition of Wax Packs and Warning Tracks, Mojobreak's baseball card podcast. Not really sure why I made that so dramatic. Maybe it's because the All-Star game this week is in Hollywood, baby. So I'm trying to, get my acting reel up, put it together. Call me, or call my agent. I don't have an agent. What am I talking about? It's All-Star week. Home Run Derby. You probably watched it last night. As of this recording, we haven't watched it, so welcome from the future. Fun stuff all week long. MLB Draft just happened, but we're going to get into a lot of stuff today about the first half and some of the big stars of the first half and what the future will bring for them in the hobby. We're also going to talk about the National. It's coming up next week. We're going to talk more about it next week, but I thought give you a little taste from a guy who has been around the block here in the hobby. He's Ryan Cracknell. You know him from Beckett.com, the Beckett hobby editor. All those checklists you eagerly wait for, all those price guides you are looking up, Ryan is a big part of that over at Beckett. I talked to Ryan about what to expect from the National. For a first-timer, that includes me, first-timer at the National, I'm that guy, what I should expect, what anyone who's a first-timer should expect from this huge gathering of everybody who loves all things sports cards. I cannot wait. But, of course, we talk about those big first-half performers, some big names you're going to see in L.A. at the All-Star Game this week, what the future has in store for these guys in the baseball card world. Here is my conversation with Ryan. You know the name. You know him as the guy that if you're waiting for those checklists, he is the guy to go to. How often, Ryan, I got to ask, first of all, welcome to the show. I'm sure every day you are getting something like, hey, man, where's my checklist? You're the guy with the checklists. Where are they? I'm waiting.
Yeah, it's just about every day. Kind
Yeah.
of depends on what's coming out. And, we got National Treasures basketball coming this week, I think, still. And so just kind of waiting on that. Just know I am checking for those National Treasures. It's just going on lunchtime. I've already looked for it 6 times today. So I am once it drops, then it's like all craziness and formatting and getting it posted. But until they drop it, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, that's just a PSA. I know our listeners are pretty good, but a PSA to anyone. Hey, it's that Ryan does not make the checklists. He just is. He is merely, he's out there doing his due diligence for everybody in the hobby, and of course, we appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. You guys are doing over at Beckett. And how many years, by the way? We'll just kind of talk about your background. How many years have you been with Beckett? How did it get started? And just kind of your interest in the hobby in general, if you want to just kind of give us a little bit of your hobby history.
Sure. Beckett is 7 years, pretty much exactly right now. I don't whatever the start date of the 2015 National was, that was my first day at Beckett. So yeah, it's been 7 years. And before that, I've been collecting pretty much my entire life.
Yeah.
A lot of us my age started in the late 80s, early 90s. I could even go back a little bit before that to like ET. That's what I remember getting at the grocery store. And
Nice.
wheeling and dealing some garbage pail kids on the playground, and all those cliches, totally me. And as I was a Canadian who likes baseball, that got really tricky. I don't hate hockey. I just don't follow hockey, so I don't collect hockey. Around when I was graduating high school is when the whole internet thing started taking off, and I built myself a website on GeoCities, yeah, and put up my want lists and trade lists and got connected that way. And it's just kind of snowballed, through university. The first time through, I did a writing degree, planning on doing the newspaper journalism thing. Thankfully, that did not work out. But through my website myself, blogging, then my job before Beckett, and then now Beckett, it's just kind of, the hobby's become my career, which, that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, what do they say? You do what you love, and I always say to people, I get to play with baseball cards and football cards for a living. You really can't beat that. It's we get to do those childhood memories and dreams. And I'm also realizing we're talking about. I've asked so many people about what is your genesis in the hobby, and I always realize it's seldom sports cards that is the initial gateway into this. It's always like a pop culture thing. You mentioned ET and Garbage Pail Kids, and I think for kids of the 90s it's Pokemon cards and things like that. So always find that very interesting that it's that stuff that we come back to. So and I've kind of been like now the last few months saying, hey man, the outside of the sports card world, look outside, expand your horizons. And in a way it kind of gets in touch with what we all loved about collecting. I know I just see in your background right there, I think I saw some Star Wars back there.
Oh
So,
yeah, Muppet, Star Wars, everything. Bill Murray. I have Molly Ringwald on my wall, just out of
nice.
frame, and I love the entertainment cards because they're always so different. Like even if you collect a show outside of a couple like Star Wars, you don't get a lot of repetition. So for sports with autographs, you can be hunting forever for 100 different, thousands of different Kobe's, Michael Jordans, whatever. But with movies and TV shows, you might have two or three in most instances.
Right.
Star Wars is different. They're more, I would say, they parallel sports more than anything else. But there is some fun in that, and just kind of researching where is this person's first cards. This weekend I just found out they made Willow trading cards in Ziploc sandwich bags. I'd
That's
never seen them before, and it's like, whoa, this is cool. I need to find these now. And someone on Twitter's like, Val Kilmer rookie card? Maybe it is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
So,
yeah. And the new Willow show's coming out, so you'd think,
yeah,
yeah, now's the time. Now is the
yeah.
time to collect.
Prospecting on Willow.
Yeah, that's that's right. We need some Warwick Davis cards. Yeah, for sure. I also saw you mentioned the Muppets. I saw your tweet that you found a bunch of Muppet magazines.
Yep.
I have got a box that I bought, God, maybe 2 years ago. I just didn't know what to do with it. So it's sitting sealed, but it's the Muppets. I think it's the inaugural season of the San Jose Sharks, but it's all Muppets with hockey,
Yes.
the hockey set. Yeah.
Muppets Take the Ice. It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
Very-
The coolest ones in there are where they redo the NHL logos as Muppet characters. Those are a lot of fun.
That's cool.
If I remember correctly, that was when the NHL was trying to connect with kids. The Fox era with the glowing puck and everything
Yes,
else.
yeah.
And what's more 90s and kids than the Muppets?
Yeah, that's
Too much everything.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know it as a child of the 90s. Yeah, a lot of Muppets movies were watched. Muppet Christmas Carol, Treasure Island. So yeah, all of that was in heavy rotation at my house. But hey, we're here to talk some baseball cards and sports cards in general. And before we delve into, now we're at the All-Star break for baseball. I do actually want to get your thoughts. We're a week away from the National, and I'm happy to have you on now. Hopefully we'll see you out there at the National. Are you going to be making the trip out there?
I am. I leave a week today. I begin my journey. I'm a little stressed out about it because apparently airlines and everything else, crossing borders. But yeah, once I get there, it'll be great.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, we're it's it's always the thought for us. It's like we had that show in Vegas, so easy. It's West Coast, we can drive, and this is it's a whole nother thing to bring the whole unit over to Atlantic City. But I'm very excited. This is personally, this is my very first National, so I'm stoked about it. Like you said, a little nervous. So I want to hear from you and anyone who's listening who might be going to the National, whether it be for the first time or maybe it's their first time in Atlantic City. What are some of those expectations that you should have as a first timer, or maybe some of those things that you wish someone might have told you going into that first time at the National?
Number one, prepare to be overwhelmed. Not in a bad way, just like the sheer scope of it. In my neck of the woods, I don't have big card shows. I've never been to big card shows. So I believe 2014 was the first time I went to a National. And I was just like, I just had to kind of take it all in at first. I'm a processor to begin with. I like to be methodical, I guess. And it was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here with all the people, everything else. Just be prepared for that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But with that, don't spend all your money all at once. If you're going with a budget, there's a lot of cards there. A lot of it's like the really, really new stuff I found, or the really old vintage stuff. So if you're kind of looking for that 90s stuff, at least the years that I've been, early 2000s, you're going to be hunting and digging and everything else. You'll see some of it. But I went with a couple things that I was looking for, and I wasn't able to actually find them there, which kind of surprised me a little bit. But still, more than enough to find.
Yeah.
And, with that, the thing that everyone says, and it's so, so true, have comfortable shoes. It's going to be a lot of walking, and comfort is huge. If you're going to be waiting in line for autographs, you just want to be comfortable. And the easiest thing you can do is wear a good pair of shoes. Bring some water. Don't have it out and about, because dealers are going to freak out at you at their table, and obviously. But have something just to keep yourself refreshed. The stalls in restaurants in there, they're a captive audience, so they're going to charge you for it. And we all want to spend more money on cards. So just bring that bottle of water. Be patient. With so much to take in, it's going to take some time to go through the show floor. Hopefully you're there more than one day. As crazy as that seems for a card show, you can spend the whole weekend there and still miss tables. I've done that before. I've been there the entire time, and in the last hour of the show, I'll be like, I have not been to that table yet. So that's great. That's part of the treasure hunt. If you're connected on Twitter or any sort of community through the breaks, meet with people. This is a time to meet in person and, connect a face with a handle. And that is a tricky thing nowadays. Is I know people more by what their Twitter handle is than their actual name. And
right.
So the National lets you make those connections and see your friends and everything else. I liken it to summer camp for collectors in that regard. So I think those are the big ones that I would have, and have a backpack with some supplies. You need your top loaders, your penny sleeves, maybe a 400 count box, just so that you can put your stuff in, so that you're not carrying it around in your loose hands all day, putting it on a table, forgetting about it. That was something that I wish someone had told me and I didn't think of, and it seems so obvious.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too obvious. So
yeah, but you never know. It's as someone who I think every trip I have gone on for the last 5 years forgets at least one thing. Yeah, I think it's definitely something good to know. Even the obvious things, I think, are something you need to say.
And if you're doing the autographs, if you're going to be getting a photo, it's probably easier to pick up an 8x10 top loader at your local card shop if you have one, versus maybe finding one somewhere on some table. So yeah, just come prepared that way.
Yeah, well, it's you touched on something that I think is the thing I'm most excited about. And again, I've had a little bit of experience at a couple of shows now, but to be able to, like you said, put a face to the personalities, to the Twitter handles, that's I think what it's all about. And you cut away all of the white noise and all of that you get sometimes being in the social media space and whatnot. And you kind of just see people for who they are. And that's an even better thing, to just, get to know the person, rather than we get so caught up in that world. I know the National also is more of just a trade show, specifically in a card show with deals happening, but there's been so much in the hobby, so much news that has happened since that last National. In the hobby, obviously the Fanatics stuff and all that, and Tops, and all these licenses going to different places. This is probably just pure speculation, so go as far as you like.
Sure.
Do you expect to hear any sort of big, sort of earth-shattering news here at the National in regards to those companies, or is that something that maybe they table for a business meeting or a quarterly report or whatever, that the National's not quite the place for that?
Yeah, I don't really, as far as newsworthy stuff, I don't think it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
It's more, the National is more a celebration of, what's going on. And for the card companies that are there, they're going to be so focused on their redemption programs and putting faces with collectors and customer service experiences, that it could get lost in the shuffle kind of thing. Tops normally, I don't know if they're going to this year, but every year that I've gone, they've done a Q&A after the show, one of the nights. Highly recommend it. You have to sign up at their booth. But every time I've gone, there's food, open bar, free cards, and you can ask them questions. They'll be trivia and games and all that sort of stuff. But they take an open floor with their executives right up at the front, and you can literally ask them anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get the answer you want, sometimes you don't. But it's face to face, so you can't go wrong with that. I think that's a good thing. In the past couple of years, I think the sorts of things that we've seen are like the checklist for National Baseball Card Day. Cool, noteworthy. Is it going to change how we collect? No. And realistically, what's left out there? Like all four of the major basketball, football, baseball, and hockey, all in the last year, the licenses have been locked up. So, I don't know what else is out there, other than if someone's going to acquire someone else. I don't know. Possible. I don't know.
It would certainly, it would be. It sounds like definitely not the norm for the National, and like you said, it does seem like there's a lot going on, and there will be plenty to get into. So I'll just make sure to have my questions ready to grill the folks at Top. So I'll be nice, I swear. We'll just talk about Topps Chrome or something. That's really what I want to know.
I'm asking about I've been waiting on a John Cena autograph since 2015.
Oh, hey.
He's been on card in several other products since, so I'm just wondering what the process is behind that. Like what, whatever.
Yeah, at this point, we need to go to a Fast and Furious premiere. You might have a better chance of getting the John Cena autos.
Or I saw you're signing his children's book for $15.
Hey, there you go.
So I'd rather have a card. I don't collect books. I have too many books as it is, and it's a picture book isn't the same.
Yeah, that would be nice. So if you heard it here, Tops. We're ready. We're gonna ask the tough questions at the National. All right, let's move on to baseball. That is what it's a baseball card podcast. So let's talk some baseball. The All-Star game is happening this week. The Home Run Derby is. We're recording this on Derby Day. I think for the first time in a while, it feels like for collectors, the Derby is really exciting. Because there's two names we're going to talk about here in that Derby that are two of the most talked about names in the hobby. The one from this year, one over the last few years. I looked at, of course, your hot and cold cards over on Beckett. Definitely a resource for this podcast as we look at who are the cards that people are talking about, who are the players people are talking about, and if that real world play is translating to the card market. And so I just want to get your thoughts on a few of these names that have been regular appearances on this list that have kind of just really since the beginning of the season. A few of these guys have just gotten on there and have not left that list. And I think the first name, the most obvious name, is maybe the guy we have mentioned the most on this podcast this year, but we cannot stop talking about him. It's Julio Rodriguez, who it feels like every week I keep thinking, well, at some point, he's great. He's so good. But at some point, he's going to slow down at some point. And it just hasn't happened. 16 home runs and 21 stolen bases at the All-Star break and 814 OPS. He's on pace to get close to 30-30 right now. I think he's on pace for 27 homers, 37 stolen bases. Would obviously be among the elite rookies in MLB history if he does that. He's been at or close to the top of the hot and cold list here for now going on, I want to say, at least a month or so, if not more. I want to ask actually first, is a Derby win for Julio Rodriguez? Like, is he the one exception here? I feel like the Derbies doesn't really count for much for obviously real world value and baseball card value, but is he maybe the one exception? Like, if he comes out and has a home run Derby to remember, he's facing what I think, it could come down to him versus Albert Pujols at one point. Is he the one guy who might actually benefit in the baseball card world from a Derby win?
Short term, probably.
Yeah.
It's the Derby more than anything else. It's not so much the win; it's the attention that you get coming from it. We kind of look back it's already been 5 years with Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Like that was he had slowed down. If I remember correctly, he'd slowed down right before the Derby came out, destroyed it, and was the hottest thing again. Pete Alonso, it's been the same kind of thing the last couple of years. It's that added attention. It's short term, just like the slam dunk in basketball. When do we talk about Aaron Gordon cards? Not very often, except dunk time. But also, if you look at Michael Jordan, part of his legacy is the slam dunk championship. And, so short term, yeah, it's going to give a boost. I think the bigger thing is the places, we're on the West Coast, so we hear about them every night whenever we
Yeah.
turn the TV on or, wherever we get our highlights from. We're used to it. Whereas on the East Coast, I don't know. I don't live over there. I don't know how much they're seeing him because he's doing his thing at night and they're sleeping. But definitely an opportunity there. I think long term, it's not going to make a difference. Don't go if you're into the prospecting thing. Look at more of those season numbers. Look at his age.
Yeah.
Not look, he hit 18 home runs in one round of the home run derby one time. Okay, that it's cool. It's great to watch. We still talk. Even Josh Hamilton.
Yeah.
Over a decade ago, that was his claim to fame forever. And well, yeah, let's not talk about Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Yeah. And you make a point. I think there is the difference of like, yeah, you could be an Aaron Gordon, win one slam dunk contest, or you could be Michael Jordan, win one that's so iconic and it becomes one of, 30, 40 iconic moments in your career. I kind of also liken it to like Ken Griffey Jr. Like obviously both Mariners.
Yeah.
That's what kind of gets my juices flowing here about Julio Rodriguez is how much we keep bringing up Ken Griffey Jr. in comparison to him. The numbers, the flair, the personality, and now if he can win a Derby, it's just another one that it's just another accolade. And I feel like we have to start to say Seattle Mariners are like, if you're looking at like teams that like if you want to get collect teams. Mariners to me as exciting as like collecting a Yankee or collecting a Red Sox, like they are kind of a marquee baseball team for baseball collectors with the amount of iconic players they have churned out through the years. And now J-Rod could be that next guy.
I'm a Mariners fan, so I'm hoping so.
Yeah.
I'm also sitting on a stack of Jared Kellenics that I bought in the off season, that I could get a whole lot cheap. We'll see. He could come back. He could.
It could.
But, with Rodriguez, he does have that X factor. The concern for me, I've really tried to avoid comparing him to Griffey because there's never going to be another Griffey. And if you're collecting and you're putting your money into Rodriguez because you think he's going to be the next Griffey, you're going to be disappointed. But he's the first Julio Rodriguez. That could be its own thing. Like, seeing how rounded a player he is so far already, how, like you mentioned, the personality piece, there aren't a lot of players like that. That's what baseball, I think, as a whole is missing. And there is the potential, I believe, that he could be one of the main faces of the game because of all it's that whole package. Baseball has a lot of really, really, really generationally good players right now, but it's lagging behind because they don't necessarily have that X factor. I love Mike Trout. Mike Trout's great, but he isn't that big personality that he isn't electric. Off the field. On the field, yeah. If you watch him a lot, I've got to see him in Seattle a couple of years ago. And it was crazy just watching him. You knew he was better than everyone else. My wife doesn't watch much baseball and knew he was better than everyone else. But we don't have that big thing, the pizzazz. And I think Rodriguez has the potential to potentially do that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And yeah, with Trout, it's always, hey, off the field, what a nice guy. And in a way, you don't want to be boring and nice. You'd rather be, kind of either brash or like in your face or loud, big personality. So yeah, it can work both ways. But you talked about guys who sort of you mentioned guys like Griffey and all that who transcend the game, these generational talents. So I got to talk about the next guy, Shohei Ohtani,
Mhm.
who for a guy that was so both in the baseball card circles and in baseball circles on the field, was literally all we were talking about last year. I do feel like we have maybe on the national media scale, and frankly, personally, I think on this show, we have not really given him as much credit as he deserves. But then you look at the numbers at the end of the first half. Yeah, he's not 19 home runs. Oh, wow. That's what 19 home runs compared to last year. Really, really rough. Still having a great year. And he's a better pitcher than he
Mhm.
was a year ago. 2.38 ERA. I guess I'll start there. Do you think maybe I don't know, where do you think he's in the hobby? Because right now it kind of feels like he still is this huge name, but we're obviously not talking about him as much. And is part of that because pitching has really taken a front seat here, whereas last year, I mean, 33 homers at the break, he was just hitting these monster shots. He was on SportsCenter every night. Obviously, we know hitting just does well, does better in the hobby. Do you think maybe he now taking this turn, becoming a true ace pitcher in a way is making us in the hobby just talk about him maybe a little bit less?
Uh, I honestly don't think we know how to deal with him.
Yeah.
He's the like absolute first of his kind, and we don't know what to make of it. His numbers are great, but if you look at a league leaders list, he's not there because he's just off the cutoff on both lists of pitching and hitting. So we don't know how to judge that. Like it's really hard. I think the Angels just not being good has certainly, him and Trout playing for a horrible team isn't doing any good on the West Coast, no less. So again, there's that piece of people on the East Coast maybe missing out and not seeing what he's doing as much. Plus, he's after last year. Last year was so, dare I say, magical.
Yeah.
The first time we'd seen something like that, we have seen kind of this sort of thing before. So it's not new. It's more we expect it from him now. Um, you know, so maybe that's why. Is he still driving? I think he's still driving the hobby quite strong.
Yeah.
He has a huge market that we don't see overseas in Japan. Like he is the global baseball player right now. And if you look at things like Topps Now print runs, that to me is kind of one of those indicators of how someone is accepted in the hobby when they're not a rookie. His card is outselling everyone. Even now, he's outselling some of the top rookies this year for those
Hmm.
sorts of things. So it's kind of a weird way of looking at it, but that shows that people are buying his cards. And if an outing of 12 Ks sells 5,000 or 3,000 cards at $10 a pop, that's pretty telling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he still does remain like a hobby favorite. I know I did see it's almost like I don't know, whatever you can count it towards. It's either just we're not. It's maybe like I see maybe larger outlets last year were covering stories of like, wow, a Shohei Ohtani card sold for this much, and it's on ESPN or whatever. And maybe there's still these huge sales, and they're just not getting as reported by major media outlets. But still, he is. I think you mentioned in this special sort of rarefied air among hobbyists at this point. Do you think that if Shohei is like done after the season, just sort of throw it out there as a hypothetical, uh,
Mhm.
does he occupy this space where he is just kind of his value is almost untouchable at this point because it was this magical moment, or does he need a few more years to be in that sort of Mike Trout? The value's never really ever going down. He's locked in as an all-time legend and an all-time hobby favorite going forward.
I think he's pretty close to locked in. If you when he first signed with the Angels, there was already that market there. He's already done like what close to a decade or whatever in Japan beforehand. I would look to Hideo Nomo is another example.
Mhm.
His stuff is still, autographs are huge because he didn't sign until I think like 2003, 2004, or something like that. So his career was pretty much done before he signed his first autographs. But his stuff, he's still popular to a certain extent for someone of his caliber in pitching. Ohtani has the awards. He got the MVP last year. That puts him in an elite level. But I guess that would put Terry Pendleton in the same level too. So, I think he's definitely solidified. Something that I was actually thinking of a couple weeks ago with Ohtani is we actually haven't seen any of his really, really rare, like those marquee cards. They haven't come up for sale in the last year. Like when
Yeah.
everything was exploding over the last year, I can't recall off the top of my head seeing the Superfractor sold in September 2018 for I think it was 192,000, which at the time was, I
Yeah.
remember looking in shock at the screen as the auction was closing, like running down. Like that is, and now it's like that wouldn't even be a blip, which is
Oh
crazy
yeah.
to think.
Sheesh. Yeah, that might
So,
be your starting point for that card today with Shohei Ohtani.
oh,
That's wild.
I
Yeah.
suspect I don't like predicting
Yeah.
something, but given what things have sold for, it has to be $1 million card now.
Yeah, I would think so.
But when it closed, he was, off getting surgery, and everyone's like, he's done. Like he's done. That person wasted their money. Like I can't believe how many comments I read of that. And sure enough, he comes back a couple of years later, better than ever. And yeah, we haven't seen those. The red refractors,
Yeah.
the kanji autographs. Once those start coming up, I think one needs to come out of the woodwork, and then once that happens, we can really get a sense of where he's at in the hobby. But that stuff is dried up completely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I may have seen maybe a red auto pull up at some point that sold for just a shade under 100,000. But you're right, and I think that's kind of telling for how people feel about him in his future. That at least those guys who are hanging on to these whales, that going forward, that I think he is still pretty locked in no matter what happens here. I mean, yeah, and I think if you talk to any baseball fan 10, 20 years from now, they're going to talk about these last 2 years of Shohei as maybe the most impressive feats of baseball athleticism we've ever seen. And it's crazy to say that's with no hyperbole at all. It really is just so special what we've watched him do. A couple more guys I want to talk to you about who I think in a way are in sort of similar situations. Obviously their contracts are different, but both guys who are young, or one guy very young and has been a hobby favorite for a while, another guy who has had a great year and is probably going to could be switching teams at the end of the year. We don't know. Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, both could be leaving the team that they came up with. I want to start with Soto, who is making the news. I think actually before we started recording, I saw they're doing the All-Star Game press conferences right now. And Soto is there with the tons of people around him. And there's Scott Boras right over his shoulder, closely monitoring every question. What's he going to say? Here's what So it has begun. The Juan Soto chase, the Juan Soto market is in full force. And I just want to mention, I think there's a lot of people in the hobby I've noticed on Twitter that have been like, Soto, why is his value so high? It's crazy. And you look at those first half numbers, you see a 250 batting average. You can go, yeah, why are we doing this? You also have to think, one, he's 22. He's a year older than Julio Rodriguez. That's it. And since June 22nd, 411 batting average, 786 slugging percentage, a 1,363 OPS. Nationals looking to reportedly trade him. This must have just been incredible timing on your part. I think that the latest hot and cold came up and he was on the list. I would think mostly because of this incredible hot streak he's been on. But then the trade stuff comes out that the Nationals do indeed look like they're going to try to trade him on Saturday as well. A lot is made about, hey, it's better if a player just stays on that team the whole way through their career. That's why Trout does so well. But like in Soto's case, do you think it really matters where he goes? Obviously, you don't want him to go to maybe a lower market team, no disrespect to like the Milwaukee Brewers or something. But if Soto's in Milwaukee, doesn't have that same allure of maybe Soto in New York. So how much do you think it matters what his next team is for his future value here in the hobby?
Team, I'm with you. I don't think the team really matters that much.
Yeah.
It's the reason that he's hyped isn't because he's part of the Washington Nationals. It's because he is, like you said, 22 years old, already won a World Series, put up crazy. He has shown that he can put up amazing numbers. Spread that over a career. It is all about that potential. And when you're 22, you still talk about that. It's like, well, what if? He's going to do that. If he reaches where some people think he will, he could be playing and get traded to Tampa Bay that next week, and then Miami the week after. Nothing against either of those two cities, but they're not baseball card hotbeds. The Yankees, yeah, that's going to be a difference maker for sure. The Mets, any of those big market teams potentially. But it's ultimately going to come down to those numbers, I think. Washington to me doesn't seem to be a huge baseball card city to begin with.
Yeah.
And then coming, before the Mariners, I was cheering for the Expo, so he's kind of that honorary Expo for me. And if they were still in Montreal, I'm sure we would still have the same hype. He would just have a cooler looking hat, and
that's true.
So I think as long as he continues to progress and put up big numbers, it won't matter. Is the streakiness a little scary? Yes. I haven't also spent tens of thousands of dollars on Juan Soto cards. I've held on to whatever I pulled out of Topps archives and Holiday and Update in 2018, and that's where I'm at with his stuff. And we'll see. There's that whole 2018 class is just so good.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how much talent is out of that 2018 class right now. And I mean, it really over a 2-year span, 19 as well. Just so many names that really drive the baseball card world that are just from those 2 years. It's so interesting too that Soto and kind of just really processing through this right now, like how his value is so like in that top 2 or 3 sort of top tier echelon here among collectors, and yet he almost consistently has a first half that is markedly worse than his second halves every single year. And maybe it's just the guys who collect Soto are much more patient than a lot of other folks, and they think, no, it's a full season, you got to go a full 162, and then when the off season comes around, that's when you look at those numbers again. And I just find it interesting that for a guy who is now pretty clearly a second half player, his value still remains at an elite level. Last one I want to talk about is Aaron Judge, who I think we talked about him a little bit before, where he does for collectors, I think for me represents a guy that is like the most clear like sell him candidate of the season for me personally, as a guy that is having a career year, monster year, contract year, also over 30 going into his next few years. Like he is on the second leg of his career, could still be great, could still be wonderful. What do you think about Aaron Judge here as we go into the second half? 33 home runs, leads all of baseball. He has sort of been, he's been not very clear about his intentions of what he wants to do going forward with the Yankees. The Yankees have made him multiple offers, and all of them have been rejected. But I think there's still mutual interest to stay there. I think his value is almost completely tied to staying with the Yankees. If he goes to any other team, I just don't see him having the same value in the hobby.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's like the purest kind of Yankee player since Jeter. And where Soto, I can see, I don't see a difference wherever he goes. Yeah. Aaron Judge, he is a Yankee. Like there are certain players that come along, and when it comes to the Yankee, they have to be. I honestly, I don't know Aaron Judge. I don't talk to anybody like that. But I can't imagine him going elsewhere. And I think the most recent comparison would be when Pujols left St. Louis. He was a career Cardinal, and then all of a sudden he left, and it was like, what the heck? And his numbers just weren't that. He was in the second half of his career, and his numbers weren't great either. So it ultimately dragged him down. if Judge stays in New York and he stays a Yankee, even if you hate the Yankees, he is a player that he's so kind. He hits monster home runs. He's got a big smile. He literally is that whole package of good old Americana. And so he has to stay in the Yankees uniform, in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think if he's doing this, yeah, you mentioned with Pujols, it's really only been, I think, in the last couple of years where people finally realize, oh yeah, Pujols is putting up all these numbers. He's going to be
He's
possibly
amazing.
close 700 home runs by the end of his career, possibly. Where I think a lot of people who are maybe looking at like, where are these Albert Pujols cards? Where can I find them? And now the market's gone up over the last couple of years, but you know, he kind of just got lost for 10 years in Anaheim. Yeah, I think the same thing could happen to Judge, where he could be by the end of his career, he's approaching 500, 600 home runs, and then finally people come around. But if he's a Yankee that entire time, I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. It kind of, the way you were talking about Judge, it just made me realize, boy, if Mike Trout was a Yankee, because Judge is not the biggest personality off the field. I feel like he kind of is the Trout type of personality. He's just a nice guy, good with fans, and says all the right things. It's Mike Trout. So if Trout was in New York, yeah, it just kind of tells me that would make. I don't even want to think about what his cards would be worth if he was in New York. It's making me sick to my stomach how much those would be. Boy, it's gonna be a fun week. All-Star week in the hobby. Just had the draft as well. We did an episode last week on the draft. I don't know how much you were looking into the draft. I think I saw you write up just some of the cards that you can find right now.
I honestly couldn't tell you anything about any of the players really, other than they have baseball cards. I don't have a lot of time to begin with, so I leave prospecting to the experts, and I will happily overpay for their cards once they become something. That's kind of where I save more in the long run that way myself. It's like, okay, well, they've made the majors. Now I'll buy their card now that it's a lot more, and I'll go for second or third tier or fourth tier that I can swing. But I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think Crash Course for Collectors is like, there's a lot of names I know. Oh, Matt Holliday's son, Andrew Jones' son, Carl Crawford's son. I know those guys. Yeah, let's.
It has to be good.
They got to be good, right? They got to be good. I think there's even former football players with sons in this draft too. Eric Green's son, I believe.
Yes. Is it AC Green? Was it? No.
Eric Green, I believe, was his father. Yeah. So there's a lot of good bloodlines, a lot of talent in this recent draft. So that's really all you need to know. Ryan, on the way out, you mentioned it. You grew up a Montreal Expos fan. Mm-hmm. What do you think do you think we are going to get baseball in Montreal once again? Maybe, I know Rob Manfred's throwing it out there. Montreal is on that list of possible expansion teams. Do you think it's going to happen, and do you think it would work?
If expansion team, no. Another team moving there potentially. I think that's the biggest possibility. Honestly, living on the West Coast, I honestly think Vancouver is a great fit for an MLB team. Mm-hmm. Natural rivalry with Seattle. We have that in hockey now. The West Coast loves baseball. Like all the minor league things that I've been to over the years, maybe not a lot, but the attendance is pretty strong for lesser baseball. So we'll hope so. Is it going to be the same Expos? I don't know. Like, I kind of wrestle over it because I collect Expos cards, but I don't know if I'm ready for modern Expos, like every set, every time kind of thing. I have mixed feelings that way.
Yeah.
Another Canadian team, yes, that I would love to see.
All right.
I think we could handle it. The last time Expos had bad ownership, the stadium, from what I understand, I haven't been to Montreal ever. The stadium was like it was rough.
Yeah. And
people were tired in that city of being, messed around with and going, oh, your team's going to leave. Well, why would you support that? And the dollar was really, really bad at the time. It was like $1 Canadian would get us like 60 cents US. So that's a lot of money to have to spend and everything else. So that's stabilized. I think it could work. Will it happen? I don't know. I don't know if baseball needs to expand. Do some teams need to relocate? Yeah, if you're getting only a few thousand people a night, yeah, it might be a possibility.
Yeah, I think I hope you agree with this. I think the scenario that the Tampa Bay Rays threw out, where they were half in Tampa, half
Ooh.
in Montreal. Yeah, no thanks.
No, it's got to be all or nothing.
Exactly, and
Nobody, Montreal's had a team taken away. They know what it feels like. I'm on the West Coast. I rooted for the Nordiques in hockey. They left. The Vancouver Grizzlies in basketball. They left. Seattle Supersonics. Hey, they're gone too. So maybe I'm just cynical and don't want to latch myself to a team too much because they always disappoint me and leave town like a runaway dog or something like that.
Vancouver definitely though it's one that has shocked me that they just don't have more pro sports teams, and I feel like they always throw out, well, it's so close to Seattle. It's like, well, there's a lot of places that are big that are close to each other. I don't know why that's the difference. And there's not a big international border in between those two places, so there's that too.
Yeah, and it's not easy to get to Seattle. I have to 24 hours in advance, and I'm right nearby, but
right.
I have to drive a couple hours, go on a boat for a few hours, and then drive more. And don't make it to Seattle too often.
Yeah. No, it's when it's something that seems like it's 90 minutes away, but that's does not tell the whole story. So what we're trying to say is yes, more Vancouver pro sports teams. I think wholeheartedly agree with that. Hey Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. Hope we'll see you at the National again. Awesome. We will see you. Read them, Beckett.com, your checklists, your great, the awesome write-up he had of all those. I think you were finding all of the backwards Ken Griffey Jr. cards. Totally dug that. So fun stuff on there, and always appreciate all of the insight on Beckett, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon.
Once again, big thank you to Ryan Cracknell. Read him over at Beckett.com. The hot and cold every week is a huge resource here for this show. Good stuff over at Beckett.com. Obviously, a legacy brand name in this hobby that is still going strong. A big thanks to Ryan. And, of course, make sure to subscribe to this show and all of our podcasts. Mojobreak Sports Card Show. If you haven't already subscribed, do so now. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Look that up. Mojobreak Sports Card Show. New episodes of Wax Packs every Tuesday. New episodes of our flagship show, The Hype, every Thursday. And find us at the National in Jersey and AC, baby. Find us there. We'll have Mojobreak Media stuff. You can see me. You can see Doug. You can see Danny. You can see the whole gang. It'll be fun. One big happy family in Atlantic City. Enjoy the All-Star game, everybody. Until next week, I'm Cody. We'll talk to you on the next episode of Wax Packs and Warning Tracks.